say good evening to each of you.
Good evening.
Before you, you have this nice, pretty book. That's the Comprehensive Annual Financial Report. And in that report, we have our annual assessment that's done by external auditors. They come before this body, this governing body, twice a year. They come at the beginning of the audit as part of the planning phase. And today, or rather this evening, they're going to come to present their auditor report. And we'll listen to them as they come. And Cheryl Zistris, the partner for KPMG, who is our audit firm, is coming at this time.
Thank you. Hey, good to see you again. Thank you
Thank
for
you.
coming back.
Okay, well, first of all, I'd like to thank you for letting us come well, first of all, to serve as the auditors for the city. And we're here, as John indicated, to present the results of the audit. Our agenda for tonight is, first I'll give you a few highlights about the audit itself, and then we're going to go through, there's a set of required communications that I need to make to you as the governing body that has oversight over the financial reporting role, which are also summarized in a letter, and we'll go through those. And then we'll talk for a few minutes about the internal control procedures we perform under government auditing standards and the A133 audit, which is the audit of the city's federal grants. Okay, so we'll start with the highlights. The June 30, 2013 audit is complete. As an auditor, we always live in the past, so. But I know you all have a copy of the final issued report that was handed out tonight. So congratulations to Alice and her staff on a job well done with the report. We did issue a clean or an unqualified or unmodified opinion on the financials, which means that the numbers as prepared by the city's staff, were fairly stated. We also issued, which is at the back of the report, a couple of required reports under government auditing standards. Those reports provide you with some negative assurance on the operation of controls. Like, we don't actually audit controls like a public company would, but we do perform some procedures, and also provides you with some negative assurance that nothing came to our attention on certain compliance matters. The audit is also performed in accordance with a set of specifications that the Auditor of Public Accounts of the Commonwealth of Virginia issues, and we perform certain procedures on their behalf and have completed those as well. We also completed, as I stated before, an A133 audit of the federal programs of the city, and we'll talk about that a little bit further in a minute. So now we get to the required communications, and I think at least in your drop boxes, you got a written copy of those communications. So I'm going to try to be brief and just go over the highlights. And obviously at any time, we're happy to answer questions if you haven't had a chance to look at the letter in detail. The first step in the letter is just to lay out for you like what an audit is and what it isn't. I mean, the objective of an audit is to look for material errors. The objective of an audit is not to identify fraud, although we do perform some procedures to do risk assessments that we talked to you about when we came in a few months ago through the process. And then in terms of other required communications, you notice that the book is very thick, and our opinion only covers certain of those pages in the middle. But we do read the entire document and to make sure that what's presented in the document is consistent with, what we've learned in our role as the auditors of the city. In terms of accounting policies and alternative treatments, the significant accounting policies for the city are in the first footnote to the financial statements, and there were really no significant changes this year. There were a few semantics. For those of you that were here earlier, there are some more significant changes that are coming down the road next year that we'll talk to you about when we come back as we're heading into the next audit. We also are required under professional standards to discuss with you the qualitative aspects of your accounting principles. And what that really means is, do we as as the auditors or the accounting experts, have any concerns about the choices that the city is making in terms of accounting principles and practices, and we don't. I mean, the city is choosing conservative and appropriate policies and accounting standards as they prepare their financial statements. Management judgments and accounting estimates. We talked to you about our plans related to these when we came a few months ago, and we've completed the audit work over these three areas: the post-employment benefits, the accrual for self-insurance, and the tax and utility allowance for uncollectible accounts. Estimates obviously are sensitive because they're subject to management judgment, but we didn't have any significant findings and didn't propose any adjustments in these areas that were of any significance as we work through the process. If you look right behind the letter when you have a chance, you'll see some adjustments that we didn't make that we considered to be immaterial, and we are required under professional standards to report those to you. They are, I mean, sometimes for a variety of reasons. I mean, whether it's convenience or the way the accounting system works, there'll be certain items that'll come up that we'll pass on because they're not material to the financials. And those are included right behind the letter dated December 23rd. And I won't go through those in detail because it gets to be very complicated. There were no disagreements with management on financial and accounting and reporting matters. No consultations with other accountants that we would want to bring to your attention. We are a little bit later in terms of getting finished with the audit from our previously established schedule, but earlier than last year, so that's good. Always good to make progress. And we do confirm to you in writing in that letter, you know, our independence with respect to the city in accordance with both standards established by the AICPA as well as government auditing standards. Okay, so a brief discussion about internal control and the A133 audit. There were no material weaknesses or significant deficiencies at the financial statement level, which is actually summarized in one of those opinions that I talked with you about that are at the back of the document under government auditing standards, so that's good news. We always identify opportunities for improvement and other more minor matters that we go through with management of the city, and that has been done. We did complete the A133 audit. There was $108 million in federal assistance that the city received in fiscal 13, of which approximately $5 million was ARA funding. For those of you who've been around for a while, that stimulus money used to be a much higher percentage, you know, of the funds that were running through this document. And the overall number has come down a little bit as well in the absence of those stimulus funds from where it was a couple of years ago. There were 11 programs audited, 2 at Norfolk Public Schools, and then 9 for the city. All programs that receive federal assistance in excess of $3 million are subject to audit at least once every 3 years. And then beyond that, we select a number of smaller programs that are it's a risk assessment type process that fill the pot in the off years in terms of satisfying the requirements for the number of programs. This year, ARA was still driving to some degree our selections. There were a couple of fairly small programs that were tested because they were 100% ARA. I think that will change next year, and we'll be back to, you know, being able to do a more true risk assessment. And in that case, we'll focus more on higher dollar, what they call B programs, which are the ones under $3 million, rather than some of the smaller ones that we've been forced to do the last few years with the stimulus funding. A piece of good news, the last couple of years, the city has been a high-risk auditee under A133 because of a finding that we had 2 or 3 years ago in one of the major programs. And this year, we did not have any material weaknesses in any of the A programs, the ones over 3 million. So we've cleared our 2-year, tour of duty as a high risk auditee, and next year we'll be able to go back to low risk. What should happen as a result of that is that 11 ought to come down a little bit in terms of the number of programs, because we're required to cover 50% of the dollars as a high risk auditee and only 25 as a low. So hopefully that will that'll be a positive thing going forward.
So again, the impact of being high versus low is what?
We have to cover 50% of the dollars that you receive in the audit
Okay.
versus 25%
Okay.
for a low risk. Right. I mean, there are certain programs like Title I at the schools that almost get audited every year because they're so significant. But we'll have a little bit more flexibility without ARA and as a low risk auditee to, make some judgments about which programs we decide to look at moving forward, where it's been pretty formulaic the last few years. There were a few findings as a result of the A133 audit, and they are discussed in detail because I'm going to be pretty brief here on pages 154 through 168 of the CAFR. Some of these are repeat findings. Some of them are, odd one-off type things that happened. But I'll just kind of briefly walk through those. The first 2 or 3 are in the TANF grant, which is administered by the Human Services Department. The first couple we seem to have every year. I mean, they relate to payments that the city makes on the state's behalf to TANF recipients. And there's a very complex set of rules around exactly when those payments start and when they stop, when the participant does certain things. They're not easy to administer, and it's very difficult to get all the way through that, without having a couple of issues. So the good news is that's improved. The numbers have improved, and the numbers of findings. That actually was where we had the material weakness 2 years ago that caused us to be a high risk auditee for a couple years. So, I think that's good news and progress. We also had an eligibility finding in TANF, which we've worked through and discussed with management, and I think they've got processes in place to try to avoid that in the future. JAG and COPS are 2 programs that were small programs that were all ARA dollars, and that's why they were tested. I mean, they were less than $1 million each, just a few $100,000. They had some reporting discrepancies in those 2 grants that created some issues with the special ARA reporting that you're required to do, where a couple of numbers got flipped between quarters or, something like that. So obviously that won't be an issue moving forward. The substance abuse block grant and then also Title I and school improvement had a couple of issues with suspension and debarment. That's a federal rule that requires you, before you procure a vendor where you're going to be spending federal dollars, to make sure that that vendor is not suspended or debarred. In the case of the schools, it's really happening because they're using a lot of piggyback procurements for efficiency purposes, where they're, jumping on to another school system that's bought the same thing and gone through the whole process. And a step just needs to be added to make sure that the suspension and debarment has been covered. There were no question costs with any of those because the vendors were not suspended or debarred. I mean, we can check on them after the fact, so no issues there. In the HIV grant, there was a finding, and that is the grant where the city of Norfolk handles that funding for the entire region. And there's a fairly complex requirement in there where they have to, you have to make sure that you don't spend less than last year. And obviously with so many localities, contributing to the spending, there are just some suggestions that we've made about, making sure that that is, that's monitored carefully. Highway, it was another program reporting finding. And there are a few others, probably the biggest of note, that for some reason didn't make the list, relates to the FEMA grant and just getting the reporting closed up on Hurricane Irene. I mean, I think some of the things that impacted that were the fact that FEMA was actually performing an audit of the city at the same time, which kept the folks busy and made it a little bit difficult to get all that done. And then we also, in the APA findings that I discussed, had a few minor items which are noted also in the schedule of findings. Does anybody have any questions or?
I have one question.
Yeah.
I guess it's the Ryan White grant that we,
That's the HIV,
right.
yep.
Now, if Isle of Wight or Southampton County, somebody, if they, don't, account for the dollars the way they should, are we held responsible, or how do we make sure that they are in compliance so it won't impact us?
Yeah, you have a responsibility to ensure that, the dollars that are spent don't decrease of local funds from one year to the next. And, you can hold them accountable for making sure their dollars don't increase, but all the data has got to be gathered and monitored, here as the key agency that runs the grant. Now, Isle of Wight is not one of the major entities. There's like 5 or 6, I think it's Newport News and Virginia Beach and Portsmouth, that are the only ones that are the key ones that have to be monitored. So you really don't, it does make it a little bit easier because you don't have to chase every tiny little entity that participates in the area. There's 5 or 6 that are considered the key, and that's the level at which the compliance is performed.
I noticed that you had several things there from the school system that appeared on this audit. Now, when the school system, when they do their audit, do those same items appear on their audit again?
Not for A133. The school's financial statements appear in the city's CAFR
Yeah.
as a component unit because Virginia has dependent school districts, and ultimately they rely on the city for, to build
Yeah.
their buildings and fund their operations and that type of thing. The A133 audit is done at the reporting entity level. So when I go and give my report to the school board next week, I'm going to tell them about their findings, but those findings, because they obviously care about what the outcome is of the grants that we audit on their side, but the A133 audit is not repeated in their report because it's supposed to be performed at the level of the entire reporting entity, which would be the city in Virginia. So, any other questions or comments? Thank
I'm
you very
Alice
much.
Kelly, I'm the Director of Finance, and I just wanted to thank everybody, including KPMG, city auditors, but especially the finance department and all the financial staff of the city in preparing a comprehensive annual financial report. Sometimes people forget how comprehensive it is, and every financial transaction that goes on in the city is in that report. So it is a very useful and powerful document that we use for a lot of different things, and I just wanted to make sure that you had a copy, and if you had any questions, please feel free to contact us later on.
All right.
Thank you.
And thank you, Alice, and to everybody at the city for the hospitality that our folks get when they're here. It's not always fun to have auditors in the building, but we do our best.
Thank you very, very much.
Okay,
Next item?
sure. Mayor and members of council, next is the mid-year update in the 5-year forecast. And as I mentioned earlier, I'm required to provide for you an update. And we have a couple of items, and I think, okay, great. I think that, I guess the best way to start this off is, we heard you over the last budget development process, and we're trying to get as much information to you as early as possible. Typically, it would be better to have this presentation later in February, so we could make sure that we have all the numbers refined. So I apologize to the entire staff who worked a few weekends to make sure that we gave you the best numbers possible. But I think this is about as early as we could get this information to you. So one of the items, and I think Sabrina's going to come up, one of the items that you have is a blue notebook, which is a resource guide for FY14. Typically, you get that in the April timeframe, so we wanted to get that to you today. So throughout this discussion on not just where we are in terms of FY14, but as we go out into 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, this is a building block. And if there's some additional information that council would like to have, we'll make sure that we can build this book for you. But right now, this is the typical type of information that you would get as we deliver the budget to you in the April timeframe. With that said, today we want to provide for you really 3 updates. One is where we end the fiscal year 2013, so the period that ends into June 30, 2013. We want to give you an update of where we are in the current fiscal year, and then we will give you a 5-year outlook. And you know as well as I do, it's very difficult to predict tomorrow, and it's extremely difficult to predict 5 years out. But we're going to put a little bit of a greater deal of emphasis on that 5-year forecast this time, because I think it's significant in terms of what we do in FY15 and FY16. So with that said, I'll start off with the first piece of where we've been. And the administration is very appreciative for the council, the action that you took back in September 2011 when you provided us with 6 priority areas, with the foundation being the well-managed government. And I will say that is what we drive the resources towards, those 6 identified areas. Well, one of the things that I would suggest, that if you look at that cornerstone, safe, healthy, and inclusive communities, there are certain things that we, I guess, had to bring back online because it was important to the council. So in other words, as a budget saving strategy, years ago, we closed libraries on Mondays and we closed rec centers certain hours during the week, and that was not something that boded well for the community. So what the council did is they opened back up libraries and opened up rec centers. So again, having those priorities and basing our resources on those priorities makes it easier for the administration to begin to execute. The other thing that I'd point out is that lifelong learning. The council has appropriated a great deal of money in terms of education. One of the areas that we talk about annually is just K through 12 education. And I think it's important to note that from fiscal year 2012 to fiscal year 2014, the council provided additional money for K through 12 education to the tune of about $7.5 million more from the FY12 to FY14. And even if you go back to 2007, and I think the mayor has said this in a couple of settings before, is that whereas the state money decreased, the council actually provided additional money for K through 12 education, again under that priority of lifelong learning. So from FY 2007 to the current fiscal year, council added more than $14 million in additional funding for K through 12 education, while the state had pulled away almost $20 million in funding over that same time period. So that's just a few examples of why it's so important to have the priorities and we earmark our resources towards those priorities. I think it also provides the groundwork for what we call a well-managed government. One of the things I didn't mention is, even if you look at the org chart that we provided for you, which I believe we have to update for the org chart, we start off with all of the priorities right at the top. And what that has allowed us to do is to have these strategic areas such as neighbors building neighborhoods, smart processing, a healthy Norfolk, where we're able to, again, take those strategies and align our resources with those strategies. And what's neat is that because of your actions, the city has been recognized as an All-American City in 2013, an upgrade from Standards & Poor's in terms of our credit rating, and being in that first group of 100 resilient cities. So again, I believe that speaks volumes to what the council has done in terms of having priorities. So if you start to cut through the priorities, the council sets the vision and the priorities, and then it's up to the administration to set goals, objectives, performance measures, and evaluations. And one of the things that you'll hear from Sabrina tonight is a new focus on the evaluation of results. So in other words, the top leadership in the administration is being evaluated by their performance measures, their objectives, and the goals, and how they reach them. So I think that it took us a couple of years to work through some things, but I do believe that that is the way to have well-managed government and to live up to the priorities that the council has set. So the preliminary five-year outlook. So typically this is the last slide in the presentation. So we've moved it up to the front because I think that red line and that blue line speaks volumes. I'll start off by saying that back in September we talked about a $20 million gap for the next fiscal year. Somewhere in here we'll tell you that gap has come down dramatically, but I also want to put into the proper context that Arlington County, Chesterfield County, City of Richmond, Virginia Beach, everybody has similar challenges. They have similar challenges. So it's not just the city of Norfolk that has talked about the struggle between revenue and expenditures. I will say that what's important with this particular graph is that when you start to look at that difference between the revenue and the expenditures exceeding the revenue, one of the things that we found out this fall as we had an economic roundtable here in the city, we invited the governor's chief forecaster, we invited forecasters from the Federal Reserve, we had city managers from across the region, and we even had the Navy at the table. And a theme that came across basically was that there's almost this new normal. In other words, the expectations of growth being 6%, 7% is not going to be a reality for us over the next 2 or 3 years. So with that, and if you take that into account, I can tell you that about 25% of the revenue that is generated by the city comes from real estate. So the good news is that we've talked to the assessor, and there is the belief that real estate assessments will actually be in the positive for FY15.
What do you mean by
1%.
positive?
So positive for let's say the city. In other words, so you think about real estate as being 25% of your portfolio, and you would hope that your portfolio grows each year. So one of the slides that we have in your resource book, if you just go to page 15, even in the resource book, we've had 25% of our portfolio not growing 5% each year, 6%, 7% each year. We've had actually 25% of our portfolio that's been declining. So when you start to look at residential assessments or the potential revenue associated with that, that's 4 consecutive years of decline. All in, last year was that first year in 4 years that we saw an overall growth. That growth was 0.28%. So in other words, in the past, if you asked me what was the growth in real estate over the last 10 years, I'd say about 6.5%. Over the last 20 years, about 5%. Over the last 30 years, about 5.5%. So for us to have negative growth, or not to have that growth for a 4-year period of time, and now to get into whatever this new normal is, with the expectation that being very pleased that you're at least on the positive side, but this return to 5 and 6% growth, we don't see that in FY15 or FY16. So that's what's the value of that round table. It's not just something that's unique to Norfolk. It's what we were seeing across the region and across the state. Okay. But that's how we put this into perspective. So if I started off in the far left in FY13, I will say that in a few pages I'm going to tell you that it's a positive story that we ended with a surplus. I'll tell you right now in FY14 that mid-year that we're tracking the budget maybe up $1.2 million, but on a $800 million budget, a million or 1 or 2 million is not worth mentioning in terms of knocking out a forecast. In other words, I could miss that on one deposit day. But what I really want to focus on, and Sabrina will go into much more detail, is really that 16, 17, and 18 and 19. Because our hope is that if we can get through 15 and 16, that we can get better growth in one of our key sources, for instance, like real estate. And many of the things that you've been hearing around the table in terms of growing the economy, we would hope that some of those projects also help as you start to go, as you get through this rough patch. So where are we with FY13? So we talked a little bit about this at the retreat. I think we're in the $3 million range, and now with the books closed, we do have a surplus for the period that ended June 30, 2013, of about $5 million. Okay, so I think that's great news. What I'd like to put in perspective is that if you go back to the last 2 fiscal years, we've had surpluses closer to $9 million. So this surplus is smaller than the last 2 years, and part of it is because it starts off getting a little easy at the beginning, trying to find every nickel that's under the cushion and every account that could be scrubbed, and now it's getting much more difficult to have surpluses at that $8 to $9 million range. But the good news is that we do have a surplus. Now, the council approved financial policies about how a surplus should be used. One thing I would like to say is just how we account for the surplus, and we talked a little bit about this at the retreat. I think that the big thing is that when you look at the revenue came in a little bit better than expected. The expenditures were less than we had projected, and she hates it when I bring attention to her. But Dr. Patricia Harrison, to have a revenue forecast that is 0.3 percentage point is remarkable. And I guess the benchmark is if your 2% is a good forecast. So we're very fortunate to have Dr. Harrison here. She looks at the revenue on a daily basis. But when you start to look at that, it's about $31 million that we're up. But one of the things that occurs after you look at other sources, we have this concept called carry forwards. So a good portion of that positive variance we had already rolled into this current fiscal year, about $19 million. If you go down the line, the school system did the same thing, about $7.7 million that they had an approved carry forward. One of the things that you'll hear from me tonight and Sabrina tonight, as well as the school system, is that when you have that carry forward, if you match it to a one-time expenditure, that's fine. But if you don't match it to a one-time expenditure, you start the next year with that problem. And that's something that we discussed a little bit in September.
What are the designations?
So the designations that we have, a piece of it is in that $19.6 million. One of the things that we did is we basically said the surplus from 2012, it was about 8.6 million. We rolled that whole thing into the next fiscal year. So we designated that for that purpose. That's the biggest piece of it. We had some department savings that we captured mid-year that we said we're going to have our reduction strategies. We forced those savings, we rolled those over also.
Well, there's the separate category designations of 9.
Right, that is basically the school surplus, about $2.4 million. There were some school encumbrances also. So
That's different. Okay.
that's, yes.
I see it. Okay. All right.
So then you say, okay, what do you do with the $5.2 million? So if we go back to the financial policies, which again played a tremendous role in the upgrade from S&P, is that one of the things that the council decided was that let's achieve structural balance, and you gave us 5 years to do it. Okay, so this is the first year of that 5-year process. But in order to achieve it, we would have to wean ourselves off of taking those surpluses that are one-time, rolling them over for ongoing expenses. Okay, so one way to do that is to take a surplus and you could either put it towards one-time expenditures like a capital project or technology or things of that nature, or we could prop up our reserves. The great news about the reserves is that the city has met all of it's within the range of every reserve that has been established. The 5% reserve, the risk management reserve, and the economic downturn reserve. So while everybody would love to get reserves higher, we have met the minimum level for each one of those reserves. But those are the kinds of discussions that I believe you'll have over the next couple of months about how to use that surplus. As I mentioned earlier, PAYGO Capital is one of the best ways to do that, because what it's going to do is use that one-time resource for a one-time expenditure. So I'll just talk a little bit about reserves and a little bit about the strategy before I turn it over to Sabrina.
Marcus, before you,
Sure.
first of all, the 1% that Ms. Bunn's talking about, I take it that's on, does that include in there the properties that would be developed in the future? Or is she typically will add that in, right?
Yes, that's exactly right.
Okay,
That's
so
exactly,
we may see more than a 1% increase.
we hope, yes.
Okay. Now, the cash piece that you're talking about here, over time, we've had a goal anyway of cashing maybe 10% of our
Yes.
capital projects.
I say 12 and a half, and
But I mean, the goal, I know.
Yes.
I was gonna beat you to it before you start throwing out new numbers. I mean,
Right.
but something like 10% has typically been a pretty healthy
right,
cash payment of, okay.
right, yes, yes. So with reserves, again, the good news is that with the policy that you set early last year, the good news is the 5% reserve that we have, which would be about $41 million. You have more than enough money in that pot. So you're closer to $42 million. So you have exceeded that minimum level. Then we have the economic downturn reserve, which you put as a floor $3 million and a cap at $5 million. We're there at 3. The highest that has been is 4, and that was back in 2010. And then you have the risk management reserve. And I'm going to anticipate that Councilman Nguyen will ask me whether or not there are more pots of money versus just that pot. And yes, we do. We have claims payment and insurance payment. We have unemployment compensation, workers' compensation. So there's another pot of money
That's not in the risk management.
that's not in the
How much
risk.
is in that?
All what's budgeted in 2014 between the claims payments insurance was 3.4 million, and the workers' compensation was 4.3 million. So that's
Why would you have a fourth box where we can look at that?
a fourth box.
Sure.
He means a fourth box.
Reserve.
Oh, sure. Well, that's you budget
Sabrina
that. That's budgeted every year in the operating. This is over and above that. You set it aside. It's setting there for
It's
like
not a
big
reserve.
plan.
It is,
We've met that obligation.
yes, it's your
He pays his
projected,
claims out of it. He has
it's
to-
your projected expenditure, and it's a budget
That's
item,
right.
and not a reserve.
Beat
It's,
you to the punch.
it's intended to be spent, it's projected to be spent.
Right, right. So even with the risk management reserve, the height of that was 5.7 million back in 2007. So again, you're in a pretty comfortable level with the reserves right now. The recommendation is to use the FY13 surplus in a manner that's consistent with the financial policies. But in the event that revenue or expenditures are so far out of balance, it's going to impact a significant reductions to programs and services, that is, I guess, the first line of defense. So with that said,
The school system last night was saying they have a $20 million shortfall.
well, I can't speak for the shortfall. I know that they have identified a shortfall. The first piece of it is that rollover from the previous year. And I believe that they have a surplus from FY13 of about 2.4 million, which isn't a part of this 5.2.
So they're not including that in their 20 million figure, the 2.4.
I'm not sure what they
I don't
put
think
in.
they will see some increased revenue from the state this year. I
Yeah,
know that they've included that. I mean,
He said about 1.8, I
yeah,
think,
I mean,
last night.
that's they're doing it the same thing, the way Marcus is. I mean, trying to figure out how to manage their funds, and they think, at least this morning, he thought he was able to do it.
And this is just my last couple of slides, is that, where we are right now, I mentioned earlier that we're tracking the budget as 817 million, 817.5 million general fund budget. When we roll everything in the enterprise funds, the CIP, we get closer to $1.2 billion. But just in terms of the general fund, we are tracking the forecast, or tracking the budget year to date, maybe a little bit better, but not significantly better. The quick update on where we are projecting to begin 2015, and a lot of discussions we'll have over the next couple of months. And I mentioned earlier that we're not alone with projecting these shortfalls. And that's what happens in this time period, is to try to close the shortfall. We start off with this $20 million gap. And again, you start off with the resources side, you back out the one-times, and you refine your revenue estimates. Same thing on the expenditure side, you back out the one-times, you refine your expenditure estimates, but you also take into account, if you built a new building, you have to staff the building. So if you build a library, you have people that work in the library and you put books in. So each time that there are many times there are capital projects, a year later there will be some operating expenses that are related to it. The good news is where we are today, that gap has basically been cut in half. So instead of having this $20 million gap, it's closer to 9.5. We will continue to have strategies to bring that down to April, bring it down to 0 before we present a budget to you in the April timeframe. One of the ways that we've been able to cut the gap in half, and I think this is very important because this is some of the areas that Sabrina will talk about that a lot of times we don't talk about around this table. It's just the concept of managing our resources. We do have refined estimates, and that's worth about almost $4 million in saving strategies. Some estimates went up, some went down, but when you net it out, we have a little less than $4 million of strategies there. The next two are extremely important. It's really a philosophical change. One is to level fund departments in 15 at where they were in 14. So that is a strategy that's worth about $3 million. But what it does is that instead of coming into a department and basically saying, I need you to give me a 5% reduction strategy or a 10% reduction strategy, we've put this philosophy out to everyone. So in other words, a lot of the strategies that Sabrina will talk about have really related to the administrative departments, not necessarily the constitutional officers or the council appointees. But if we just level fund all departments at their 14 level, that's worth about $3 million in savings. The other thing is that we did is we took 1% reduction for all departments, not just those that report to me, but again, the council appointees and the constitutional officers. And that reduction, once you take away some things that are just mandated, was worth another $3.7 million.
Are you just modeling doing this, or is this something that you're looking at to being policy?
That is how we started building this, closing this gap.
So it's more than just modeling, it's
Yes.
something that you're looking at as policy.
Oh, well, I guess you call it policy. I guess it's a tool to bring the gap down. Yes,
If
sir.
it comes from you, it's policy from your office. But I understand that, but the trouble that you run into is that there was, and I remember, Marcus, and I don't mean to be sticking you with it, but I remember when you came on, you weren't going to go and do across-the-board cuts. And I'm not going to stick you with what you may have said 2 years ago, but it was something that I thought I remembered you were not going to use as a budget tool, to just walk in and say, everybody cut your budget by 1%, 2%, 3%. You were going to do a case-by-case basis as much as possible with each department. So if Parks and Rec, you told them, you looked at their budget, and if it was 3%, and I'm not trying to jam Daryl who's behind me, but that's what you came up with.
Sure.
And if the police didn't need a budget cut, they needed an increase, it was 1%, then it was a case-by-case basis. And I'm just afraid we may be backsliding on what we may have said. We've got to, if that's the case, then I think we have to explain that to the
Sure.
department heads that work for you, or those managers.
Sure.
Am I wrong?
No, not.
That's not what I heard.
Yeah,
you
so-
say,
so-
though.
so-
That was my concern
yeah,
too.
I heard you say something different.
Yeah,
No, it's not what I-
So what?
Tell me, maybe I misread what you
So we're
said.
starting off with
I
accountability.
only
So
heard-
what we said in the past, what we've done is something as simple as, and then this is not simple, to hire somebody, it was almost like you had to have 11 signatures before you could even hire somebody. So this organization had become an organization that, to some extent, had to be run through the budget office or human resources. So what the department head said is just make me accountable. You know, I would much rather you reduce me by 1% and let me work it out than for me to have somebody in a central department mandate or dictate when I can hire somebody. So it's more of accountability than it is of a across the board cut.
I guess to characterize it as a maturing process.
Yes.
Okay.
So Marcus, I've heard from a couple employees in 2 different departments that said that their department head has come down and said, oh, we have to make all these big cuts this year so that we can balance the budget.
Right, so,
So that it's not big cuts, it was a 1%
It's a maturing
oh,
process.
yeah.
cut, but that 1% could impact a section of that department a little bit more than other section, because that 1% could be divided up and maybe 50% of that is within one section of it. So they're feeling a bigger pinch than maybe another section which might not have gotten a cut at all.
We're not jamming,
But we're
we're
not
just trying to
looking-
feel your budget
But
philosophy.
you're not looking at a 1%, like nobody orders Staples because we've got 1 million of them in our supply closet.
No, so.
You're not telling them what to do.
No, not at all. It's back to the accountability, and that's why I highlighted the evaluation piece. So in 2014, because we are halfway through the fiscal year, the concept is we're not going to lay off a bunch of people because of this 1% cut. But I'm pretty sure what I heard the council say is, show me what is the, pain wasn't the word, but show me that you've made the tough decisions first. So somewhere in here, those 1% reductions, 1% will be reflected in the budget that I present to you. And then if you say, we can't live with this, then that becomes a very different discussion. And that's how we're trying to at least be as efficient as we can, show you what the impact would be on programs and services. Some programs and services may be a low priority for this body, and some programs and services may be absolutely positively not. But I believe you would want to see the impact first. So not doing it immediately, but that is what's going to be provided to you in the April timeframe.
And the float that we've talked about before, that money that seemed to carry over.
Yes.
We're, at this point, we're willing to pay that down. Am I correct? Is that what the explanation earlier before we moved on? I didn't get a chance to ask you, but the idea is if we go to
Exactly.
those reserves, we're paying that float down.
Exactly.
Is that right, Sabrina?
Or at least matching whatever that is, if
What
it's
is
one
float?
time
Carry
to a
forward.
one-time
It's that
expenditure.
carryover, yeah.
Yeah, it's got to match. So if we're going to have $19 million in carry forwards, you should have $19 million in one-time expenses.
And but we are willing to get rid of it off our books. I mean, you are willing to make that tight call. I know, Sabrina, we talked about it before. We're willing to make that happen.
I was ready 3 years ago.
I don't know, I think we cut that discussion short. If I remember. When we went to that, I think we said, okay, we heard enough. If I remember.
So can I, just to expand on this, so you're saying for everybody that they're accountable for their decisions on how to cut by 1%. And then we will, after that is done, then you'll come back to us and we'll decide whether those cuts are appropriate or we're comfortable with it.
Exactly, it'll be in the budget.
So what about the department, though, that frankly needs to be cut by 5%?
Sure.
I mean, where
Sabrina's gonna talk
does
about
that come in here? That
There
we're
are-
still individualizing? Or the department that needs to grow by 5? I mean, we'll do all of that after you've done the uniform 1%? Is that?
So we had a $20 million problem, and we have not addressed it yet. So this is one strategy that was worth $3 million, okay? There's another strategy worth almost $4 million, then we have refined estimates, so we get it down to about $9.4 million. Sabrina's gonna talk about exactly what you said. We've established SWAT teams. We've established ESET teams. We're not looking at this in silos. We're looking at the entire organization. We're bringing the city attorney's office, the auditor's office. So this, again, is the beginning of trying to make that gap go away, but to have this structural balance so that we're not using one-time strategies for ongoing expenses.
And then just a dumb question, I know this is dumb. Level funding saves us 3 million, how does that happen?
Sure, so this is a bad example, but let's just go for it, okay? So it's pretty easy to, we budget by position in the city. So if you budget the position at $40,000 and you hired somebody on July 1st and you paid them $40,000, you would be fine. But you could, in the way the system has been, you could hire somebody on January 1st and pay them $80,000, and you would still be fine because you had $40,000 in that slot. What we're saying is that some of these surpluses were based on dollars related to personnel. So why wouldn't you reset the model and basically say, department head, this is how much money you have for personnel, and you can restructure your organization around that. Not everybody has a 1% cut. There's some departments that we know going into it that is a council priority. We didn't provide a strategy for Norfolk Public Schools that had any reductions in it because we understood that that's important to the council. So it's really almost step one, and then you're going to get additional strategies and additional evaluations to bring this down to zero.
But the $3 million savings is,
It's basically because an example I gave
some
you,
people wouldn't be hiring right away, is that what you're saying? there?
right, so as we
In
talked to
personnel, then that's where it's coming from.
the department heads basically said, let me manage my department. Let me be in control of hiring. Don't have the manager and the budget director and the HR director and an ACM sign off on everything that we do. They said, give me accountability. And so that's where we're starting.
So Marcus, okay, maybe I misunderstood. The 1% cut, that's across the board, or is that just for council appointees?
It's everybody,
That's everybody. And the level funding is for,
everyone.
how do you, okay. All right.
It's a strategy. We could have a different strategy that said, give me a 5% reduction strategy, give me a 10% reduction strategy.
Okay.
These two strategies are worth $7 million.
'Cause I heard two different things. I heard one's for one and one's for the other, but you're saying that they both apply to this, okay. All right, okay, all right, I got you.
And so with that, as we move forward, I think that the big thing before I pass it over to Sabrina is that what we're trying to do, to get to your question earlier, is that if we look at FY15 and FY16 through the same lens, then you know whatever actions you do in FY15, what impact they will have on FY16. So even though we have a 5-year forecast, what we wanted to make sure that we show you when we produce the budget over or follow your guidance to produce a budget over the next few months, is to make sure that we are not single focused on FY15, because some of the actions and strategies will have this impact in FY16. So that's a little bit of a different philosophy. Okay.
So as the manager said, we are looking at the development of the 2015 budget with the 5-prong approach, raising revenues, reducing expenditures, becoming more efficient, growing our economy, and sharing services. It's no longer, we can't cut our way out of this. We kind of have to grow our way out of this at this point. But before we move into the whole 2015 development and where we're going, I want to take a moment just to look back on the last 3-4 years since the Great Recession hit us, what we've accomplished so far. In terms of 4 years, we've had very little taxes and fee increases. They've been very modest. We've also done a lot of cost-cutting strategies and containment. Looking back through the records quickly, we found about $9 million in contractual and consultant stuff that we had done, that we had renegotiated leases, looked at best pricing, and gotten new contracts. We've reduced discretionary spending all across executive departments, at least by $2.3 million. One of the biggest cost containment strategies that we implemented was our healthcare, our transition to a city-administered, a self-insured model. That actually saved the healthcare consortium, which has Norfolk Public Schools, Redevelopment Housing Authority, and the city, about $5 million. When we were right on the cusp of going into the Affordable Care Act and healthcare costs were rising about 8%, we're managing, I think we're probably the only locality that can say that in calendar year 2014, our employees will not see a benefit increase. And because we just transitioned over, we don't have a lot of experience data. So we're at, and when Marcus said that this was early for our projections, we are projecting healthcare for the 2015 budget, 6 months of that budget, rather early. So we're still refining those numbers, but early indications indicate that we will have a very, very minimal, if to no increase. We're still working out the numbers there. But again, that's a big effort that we all undertook, and that saved us a lot of money. We also right-sized departments over the last 3 or 4 years. Looking back again, personnel, we've eliminated a lot of redundant positions, vacant positions, over $60 million worth of positions in personnel actions. That includes travel, training, some professional development. And again, most of these reductions apply to the executive departments, the ones under the city manager's purview. We did not include judicial, constitutional, or council appointees in the last 3 years of budget reductions. What we would do is mid-year, we would come along, we'd look at the forecast, and we'd say, we're going to have problems next year. So we need to save some money this year, and we'd implement mid-year budget reductions. Before I got here, the city would implement mid-year budget reductions, and those would be one time. Next year, that money would be put back into the budget. What we started doing was we implemented mid-year reductions, but then we also carried those same reductions into the following fiscal year. So you picked up the ongoing reductions there. So that's been happening for about 3 years with our executive departments.
Sabrina,
Yes.
You're in conversations now with the judicial, folks, and are
Yes.
they willing players and helping with?
Most of them are. Most of them, we met with the city clerk. We've met with everybody, actually. And the city clerk said, we'll do what we can. We will help wherever we can. We have some folks that just said no.
What about the constitutional?
Constitutionals, there are a couple that are having problems as well. So when it goes back to your question of, is it 1% across the board, we do have to look at what the impact is. Some folks just can't handle it, which means other departments will have to pick up the additional
Well,
reductions.
you have 2 new ones that are just
Right.
feeling their way
Right.
with regard to their staffing. And so I would think that they're in positions that they can make their choices now fairly
We've met with
quickly.
both of them, too.
I mean, one of them's been there for a period of time, but still, regardless he was in the office, I still think he's feeling his way
Right.
to what he has to do and to make those hard calls. So, they can make their decisions since they're fresh and they're new with it.
Correct.
If they have to shed personnel, then they shed
Right.
personnel. Those offices are often, I'm not casting aspersions at anyone who was there before, but they are political fiefdoms that allow people to put people in positions and to pay them that may not necessarily either be qualified or work that hard. It's just how it is. That's just how those offices run, and if that be the case, then the people that are coming in new can shed some of that. So they can meet that 1%, I would think, fairly well.
And they have been. They've been very
I would think they are.
accommodating,
Yeah.
actually. Back to consolidating departments, speaking of efficiencies and what we're looking at in terms of how we run the city, we've consolidated some departments. This year, in the 2014 budget, we consolidated communications and IT. We looked at it and we said there's like services, communications is heading more towards a social media type of environment, and we brought that under one umbrella. There was some cost efficiencies there. We've also, 2 years ago, we established the Department of General Services. We took 5 functions that were spread out and brought them under one umbrella for better oversight. And actually, DGS, as we call them, has done a pretty good job in managing fleet. They have turned fleet around. They've done a complete inventory of the fleet vehicles. They're repurposing vehicles. We've actually curtailed our fuel costs. We were having rising fuel costs. And they went to a futures market where they lock in the fuel prices at the beginning of the fiscal year, and they're locked in. I used to grit my teeth at the end of the year. I didn't know what the fuel price was going to be because it fluctuated so much. We've also refined service delivery. We've made some technology changes, and in that we picked up some savings. We got rid of a mainframe, some just general improvements with technology. Those were about $2.1 million worth.
Could I ask you a
Yes, sir.
question on that? One of the issues that's come up, and I know the chief is here, there's been discussions between Norfolk PD, Norfolk Commonwealth Attorney's Office, and the city that in their IT and the way it's still, that they don't talk, there's a problem with regard to that. Is that something that we can look at to rectify, and if we can put it under one umbrella? I know the chief is here, I know he knows about it, I know Commonwealth Attorneys talked about it, but that may be something that we can save money on. I understand they're on 3 different systems, and it's problematic. The systems don't talk well. So if we can look at that to try to save money on that, that'd be great. I know we haven't done that yet. I don't know if they brought that to you yet.
They both have 2 budget requests.
Okay.
And we're working
Can we
through that.
somehow consolidate and get everybody on the same sheet? All right. Thanks.
Energy efficiency, this is something that I believe we should all be proud of. A few years ago, I think they used ARA money, and we upgraded the central energy plant. We've picked up quite a bit of savings from that and other actions that the departments have done, over $1.3 million in utility savings. We're also in the process of implementing a climate control policy for buildings. Some buildings you walk into are just freezing, which means that they're just paying a lot in air conditioning. Again, that goes back to the accountability of the department heads maintaining the facilities. Shared services, that was an initiative that we entered with Virginia Beach and Chesapeake. We actually had quite a bit of success. The healthcare moving to a self-administered model was a recommendation from them. Sign shop, we actually consolidated our sign shop with Virginia Beach. We have an MOU with Virginia Beach and Chesapeake now, and they are actually making all of our traffic warning signal signs. And we do our individual signs, but we were able to pick up some small savings, but nevertheless savings there with our sign shop. Most recently, as of January 1st, we've actually started administering the health care for Norfolk Public School employees. So we're transitioning, we're in the mode of transitioning with that. So moving on, where are we going? So back to, you once asked, show us the pain. We've cut, we've looked under every rock, we've turned over every stone, which is part of why we have this $19 million carry forward issue. So as we move forward and we develop the budget, we know that there are ongoing priorities. Financial stability is one. One is to decrease our reliance on one-time revenue for ongoing expenses. We heard you loud and clear with neighborhoods. CIP is a priority. Neighborhood plans is a priority. You told us to look for opportunities for funding for them. We've actually gone through some of the past projects. We've identified some potential resources. We'll bring those back to you. You'll have to make some decisions, but there are some potential resources you may want to reprogram. Healthy neighborhoods is another one. Compensation, our human capital, that we began the comprehensive review of compensation with the 2014 budget. Yes, ma'am.
Before you go any further on that one, Marcus, where does our increase in wage on the employees that are below the living wage fit into this?
That's exactly what Chief's about to discuss.
Okay.
It's a part of the strategy.
Okay.
Yes.
So compensation, we have come up with an initiative called Attraction, Retention, Motivation, and Development. We're affectionately terming it ARMED for our employees. And I have several more slides on all of these, so I'll go into it in a little bit more detail. Lifelong learning, again, maintaining our city support. The directive from the city manager was to maintain city-level funding from 14 to 15, which means one of the shared services opportunities that we came up with in closing our central stores, we had a $1.7 million savings in 2014. That $1.7 million savings we put towards schools That is a one-time revenue source that we gave to schools this year. Because of the directive from the city manager to keep city funding at the same level in 15 as in 14, we have to find $1.7 million to replace that for schools going forward. So not only do they have a $20 million gap, they actually have a $22 million with this $1.7 million. And also to work, to develop a focused workforce development strategy. I don't think we have a very coordinated effort. We've been talking with the ship repair industry. John Andrews and I have been talking with them to establish some sort of continuum of training for ship repair. And also we've been in discussions with TCC and some of their programs.
Sabrina, Councilman Smigiel just gave me a look. You level funded schools. You didn't take 1.7.
I didn't take it. I have to find 1.7.
Schools is level funded, okay.
So back to, you've seen the slides on structural imbalance with the seesaw, one up and one down. But the blue line represents our carry forwards, and you see it going higher from 11, 12, and 13, and into 14. And the red bar is going down our real estate. So there is a correlation. One of our major revenue sources dropped, and we increased our carry forwards, which meant that we scrubbed. We found all old accounts, we consolidated stuff, all of this one-time revenue that we've been using to balance the budget. But those one-time revenues are exactly that, they're one-time revenues, so we don't have them going forward. So carry forward, let me just define carry forward. All carry forward is not bad. There's carry forward that goes on from year to year, that we know that we will have a continuous amount. So that's a carry forward, and those are okay because those are repetitive. But about half of that, about 10 million of that 19 is one time. And that's what we've been running, about 10 million each year of one-time revenues that we've been using to support salaries, lights, anything that's an ongoing revenue. So it's really that 10 million or slightly above that we have to target and trying to get down. So any questions on carry forward and one time? Because the one times are mixed in with the carry forward. That's just how we classify it.
10% is, I mean, our 10 million, that's a percentage of your budget, your operating budget is, what, 1%? I mean, a million, a little over 1%. So you're structurally balanced, about almost 99% of your budget is structurally balanced, right?
Right. Okay. Yeah, these are things, when we look at our carry forward, we say, what can we tie? We go through this exercise when we go to bond rating agencies, looks like every year now, where we say, what is in our carry forward that we can tie to one-time expenses? And any equipment purchases, we draw the line, and we bring that amount down, because the rating agencies don't like an unstructural balanced budget, and they don't like to see a very high level of one-time money being used for ongoing expenditures. We actually told them that we would get it down in 5 years. The manager has told us get it down in 3 years. No pressure, but 3 years. So how do we ensure the financial stability? Again, it's a 2-year lens that we're looking at. I came from the state budget office where we did a biennial budget. We've actually asked the budget office folks to start learning how to do a biennial budget. Now, we won't present a biennial budget to you this year, but we are in the process of converting internally for a biennial budget. So we always have a handle on where we're going. Economic Roundtable, this is the second annual one that we had. And also our economist, our city economist, puts out economic indicators that you have in front of you. She tracks the market, the housing market, the employment, all of that she uses to develop the city's projection. And as the manager alluded to earlier, most recently, he has established 2 teams, the Executive Strategic Evaluation Team and the Strategic Workforce Analysis Team. The ESET, as we call it, is a sort of an internal one. It's one with budget office and possibly finance and HR, looking at specific issues and processes. The SWAT team includes folks from the city attorney's office and the auditor, and the work plan is set by the city manager for the year. And at the end, they will produce a report just like JLARC with recommendations. A few things that we're looking at is consolidating or centralizing staff functions. You know, if there are co-located departments, can they use the same administrative personnel for payroll? So can they use the same maintenance folks? Why do we have so many redundant positions in close-by departments. We're also looking at fees and charges. We do this every year, and each year we take a little bit of a bite out of some of the fees and to have full cost recovery. We've also started issuing quarterly financial reports back to departments. This is something new that the budget office is doing. Normally, they would track projections on the year end, but this year they started issuing quarterly reports back to each department head to say, this is where we see you're going to end up. So if there's a shortfall, the department heads can readjust. The executive departments, the ones under the city manager's purview, have to sign and return the forms back to us. There are a couple of departments that are looking at it at a overage at this point. Fire is one of them. So we are working with them, but they are projected to have a shortfall. So at some point, we may also want to look at a policy that supports the real estate tax revenue sustainability. We talked about this during the retreat, establishing some triggers. So those are all some of the actions that we're taking to ensure our financial stability. So taking care of our capital needs remains another financial priority. More ongoing cash funding for projects. Again, with the Great Recession, we have not been able to put in cash. It looks like, when you look at the CIP tables, it looks like there's cash. But that's because there's cash coming in for Slover or cash coming in for Campbell, and we have to carry that appropriation. That's not our cash going in. That is something that we need to improve on. And again, funding for neighborhoods. Also, we're in the process of conducting a facility assessment. The RFP was just released for an independent evaluation of our facilities. We have about 159 buildings with an average age of 35 years. We have leaky roofs. We have maintenance issues as well. We put about $1.4 million a year into the maintenance of our facilities. That's half of what we give schools. We give schools about $3 million. So we do need an assessment. Our folks do a good job, but I think it's time to prioritize all of our needs. So moving on to our compensation, and this is the focus of the 2015 budget. We began the review with the CM message when he said we're going to review compensation in the 2014 year. So we presented most of our findings during the retreat. Not much has changed since then, but this is our first endeavor into our compensation reform. You can consider this as sort of a first deposit because it will take years to correct some of the issues that we have going on. And in addition, we were not doing yearly market analysis or studies. That's something that our HR department will be doing from now on, a year-to-year analysis of market rate adjustments. Again, it's even though we fix it now, we will fall behind again because all of the other localities are also adjusting their markets. So this is going to be a periodic review and a restart. So to recap the goals of the compensation review, we had 9 conversations with employees, staff, senior staff, HR, and why don't you say hi? This is Capri Stanley. And her staff conducted all of the conversations. They were off-site in some terms. Everybody had a chance to provide input. One of the things that we were asked to look at is whether or not the step system is appropriate for us. And during the conversations, what was revealed was for the general employees, they were okay with not having steps. They were okay with going to an open range system, meaning a minimum and maximum, which allows us the flexibility to provide market rate adjustments without having to have everybody land in a step. The public safety officers did not want to eliminate their steps, so they wanted to keep them. So the recommendation at some point will be to keep the steps for public safety. We were also asked to consider the additional retirement programs such as the 5 and 5 conversion, the DROP program, and the VRIP. I can go into those if you...
Just briefly, what are they?
The 5 and 5 conversion is all the employees after October 1st, I believe, 2010, contribute 5% into the retirement. All the employees prior to that do not. Doing a 5 and 5 conversion, meaning the city is now paying 5% for those prior to 2010. We would take that 5%, instead of the city paying on the employees' behalf, give it to the employees, let the employees pay the 5%. What that immediately does is basically raises everybody's salaries about 2 steps right there. So it's a base salary change, which is a higher base for their retirement years. But we're giving them the money to pay for it, because all we're doing is taking it from here and moving it to them so they can pay for it. It also puts everybody on the same playing field. Everybody at that point becomes equal. Everyone is contributing 5%, and it creates the equity. The drop program is something that public safety asked for sworn officers. And this really helps the administration, the folks who are trying to have personnel and plan the schedules. What they have right now is firemen or policemen that will retire. And because they run in academies, it's difficult for them to fill those positions. It's not like a regular office job where somebody can fill an administrative position. They have to wait for the academy to fill it. With the drop program, the officer says, I'm going to retire in 3 years. That's my date. So at that point, in the 3 years they want to enter the drop program, the payments that would have gone into the retirement for them would go into a separate account that would earn some interest that the actuaries would determine. At the end of 3 years, they get that amount and they walk away with it. It's a lump payment for them.
Does the state do that?
I think some localities do it. I don't think the state does that. The VRIP is the voluntary retirement program, which we just implemented back in December. We had about 82 people participate in that. And that where we offered $10,000 as an incentive to retire. It was not an early retirement program. Did I answer?
Yeah, and I take it you're going to bring us a recommendation as to one of those?
Yes. The other
That
thing,
recommendation, when you meet with, it will be after meeting with fire and PD, right?
the manager has been meeting with them regularly.
We are recommending a drop.
So they may be a separate from city employees, or will they follow the same one?
The drop will only be for sworn officers.
All right.
We also reviewed market rates, and again, we'll have those in here. And the other recommendation is to simplify the format of the compensation plan. It's a little redundant the way it is, and if we want to make it easier for folks to read, we're going to collapse some of the sections.
Is there any, other than the 5 and 5, is there any catching up on the steps for officers who?
Yes, I'm
say
going to
they-
get to that.
Okay, I'm sorry.
No problem.
I apologize.
So again, this is the armed model. It's not just about, compensation, it's about attracting employees and also focusing on our Norfolk residents.
On the sworn, the 5 and 5, while it isn't additional money in your pocket, it is the equivalent of 2 steps.
I understand. I accepted what she said, but from what I hear, there's some that want to be caught up other than that. They may have more than that that's out there. Are we looking at trying to catch?
There's an addition, yes.
Okay. That's what I thought she said. I think we're on the same sheet.
So it's also about retaining employees and compensation being one of them, but maybe establishing also career ladders and a professional development track. As I said, looking back over the 4 years, we reduced discretionary spending, we reduced professional training. So those are things that we would like to bring back at some point when our revenues are able to sustain them. Motivating employees, something as little as a picnic for them goes a long way. We have an employee relations committee and we have an employee engagement committee that are very active.
What are some of the things you're doing to attract employees?
Attract employees, I call up the HR director and I say, what are you doing?
I was just wondering, 'cause-
That's not your bailiff.
Okay.
When we know that there's a qualified person that we have personally worked with or we know of them, we call them and we talk to them. One of the issues that we face is the VRS challenge that we have, because we're not on VRS, we're an independent system. A lot of folks don't want to change their retirement system. But what our HR department does is they do targeted recruitment for positions. So they will reach out. So if it's a director of a certain field, they will reach out to like organizations and talk to people and do targeted marketing. I get it right?
Under sworn officers, the sheriff's department fall under for steps, or is that separate?
It does not include constitutionals. So just as a quick comparison of regional and market adjustments that localities have done, everyone has done something. in the recent years, or they're in the stages of a compensation study. Portsmouth is in the stages of a compensation study, and as well as Hampton. Since we have such good folks on our staff, we did not do a independent compensation study. Our HR staff did it, and they've done a darn good job. And also Ryan Bergman from the budget office has also been costing out the incentives. For Norfolk, what we did is in 2013, we actually provided 5% for sheriff deputies. And back in 2009, public safety's compensation plan was overhauled, and there was a retention program that was associated with that. In 2008, there was additional money given to public safety officers. I think their total was about 5%. It was a 0.5% more than others, and plus another $1,000 that they got. So public safety has had some adjustments. It's the general employees that have not had any market adjustments for the city.
Mayor, only because it's a few minutes before 7. And
You want
you
me
do
to
an
go
excellent
to
job. I guess the concept, and is to what Councilman Protegero said, a lot of what Sabrina has presented, you received at the retreat. I think the big difference, to answer your question, yes, living wage is a part of the strategy. The big difference is there's also a 3-year strategy that's in this presentation that tries to deal with this issue of compression and additional steps in trying to get us more competitive with salaries. And based on time, whatever you'd like for us to do
Just
going
look back
forward.
one quick. It's the only regional to provide it to.
Right, so the issue isn't that we haven't provided increases. We're the only locality in 13 and 14 to provide a general wage increase of 2%. Newport News is close to us, but we're the only ones that have provided 2%.
Can she pick up where she ended or stopped when we come back in 2 weeks, Paul?
Sure, absolutely.
Just to let her
Because
finish.
I'd like to know how many people have these STEP programs. I mean, a lot of these folks.
We're the only one in the region that has a step program.
So there's some, yes, yeah, we
Is that
absolutely.
good? Thanks.
And I'd like to see, I mean, I didn't get a direct answer to my question, maybe I didn't ask a direct question. But so to ask a direct question, it was about 75, Paul, people that we had that were working for us full-time,
Right,
who were
not making a
not
living wage.
making the living wage. So my direct question is, when are they going to get, because I don't think we need a strategy for that. I think we just need to fix it, because we're doing this poverty commission, and we're talking about keeping people out of poverty, and out of 3,000 or 4,000 or 5,000 people, we don't need a strategy to get 75 people to
I think the
a
mayor
living.
took care of that.
No, I mean, but it's still
The
gotta,
manager is gonna budget.
Yeah.
Yes.
it's gotta,
I mean, you said
yes.
do it.
But when are we, he said do it, but I'm
Yeah.
asking, when are we going to do it?
Yes, there are 2 things. We can do it July 1, which makes it very easy. If you do it today, you create more problems with compression. So our recommendation is to do it July 1 with the budget.
These items that are of interest, so are we gonna go through them?
Select,
Yeah, select
agenda
Yes,
items.
I think the only one that's related tonight is the airport. And-
Yes.
And Ron could do a 30-second stand-up. and I
Because
think
But
you
but
covered
there's a-
wait a minute.
yeah.
Aren't we voting on some of these in 2 weeks?
in 2 weeks, yes.
So we're not meeting again, right? We're not meeting before we vote.
No, but if,
So I would ask that, I
Do
mean,
these
we've got
first.
these time-sensitive issues that we're supposed to talk about them 2 weeks before we vote. Now we haven't done this. That we prioritize these and do them at the beginning of our
Yeah.
agendas.
Plus, I think there's
Because
people
we do
here.
this all the time, and now we've totally lost what we had hoped to do, and that was, because although you all want to talk about the airport, I wanted to talk about the PCO, and we don't have time to do that. And now we're gonna,
Okay.
next time we do it, we're voting.
Also, this Church Street project as well.
Yes. Yeah, definitely the Church Street one. So now what do we do?
Well, let's do the airport thing first.
So, but now what do we do about the other two?
Well, we can stay right here, okay, until everybody's satisfied, then we'll go
Right.
upstairs, okay? We'll just start late.
Do this and then Church Street and then the pawn shop.
Oh, sorry. That was excellent, Sabrina.
Short version.
Well, short version, Are there questions directly that you'd like me to answer? And I will skip the presentation.
No.
They're changing, there's a zoning text amendment. Could you just explain where they're looking at doing these projects? Where, there's obviously the zoning text is because they want to be able to market some of their property a little bit more. Where is that happening? Is it by the entranceway? Do they want to shift the entranceway off of Zoe Garden and move it to Military Highway and make that the entrance? What are we looking at here?
This is the area that is covered by the airport zoning in purple, okay? It does not include the area here at the entrance, that's OSP, okay? It does not include the botanical gardens, which we talked about last time. So it only includes the airport property itself. The two areas that are really most affected are the air cargo area, and as you know, air cargo is sort of the way that market is working. That's kind of changing, and we're not as big a player in that as we'd like to be, although we get a parallel, when we get the parallel runway, we could become a bigger player in that. So that, and then of course, Ron told you earlier about some plans down on the south side of Miller Store Road. Well, this area here that's got general aviation and some of the old maintenance facilities along Miller Store Road, that would be the two areas that would be the focus.
Does the administration recommends it?
We recommend approval, Planning Commission recommend approval unanimously.
General aviation, that's not the private
Yeah.
airport, is it, right?
Yes, it is.
You're not talking about trying
Landmark area.
You're not talking about removing that, are you?
No,
Okay.
sir, no, sir.
Just
And, you know,
rehab the whole-
none of this is, you know, nothing is for sure gonna happen. This is
Okay.
just providing additional flexibility to the Airport Commission to generate revenue at the airport.
Okay, next. All right,
Church Street.
Church Street.
Okay. Church Street. The real quick thing, there are three things that are coming forward. The first is a plan amendment. The second is a rezoning. And the area is, two triangles are located along Church Street, along the railroad tracks, and are also accessed by O'Keefe. The proposal is to change these areas into a planned development. This is the text for it, but let me get to the plan. This is what the Planning Commission saw. Two triangles, the supportive housing is here. There are two buildings each with 20 apartments, some of which are market rate, some of which would be subsidized, but the key is that about 65% of this project is intended to be market rate. So apartments here and apartments here. Planning Commission and the neighborhood were greatly concerned about how much would access onto O'Keefe, which is not a very good road. And the idea was, can we try to direct as much stuff as possible onto Church? Oh, we didn't get the right one back in. I'm sorry. We have there's a new plan, which, we go back, essentially cuts O'Keefe off at this point, right here, and allows and has the circulation go through here. There's some technical difficulties, a few details to be worked out, but there aren't any showstoppers. There's nothing with that plan that can't be made to work. There's some things that we'll have to work on together, but we're prepared to do that.
Well, what did the planning commission vote? How did they vote?
All right, Planning Commission voted against this 6-1, and that was based on the concern of the neighbors.
Right.
It was based on the perception of the Planning Commission that the transportation was not appropriately designed, with all the traffic entering onto O'Keefe. There was a great fear about the potential for concentrating poverty in an already concentrated census tract. And then there was the neighborhood concern that this is 161 rental units in a neighborhood that is already, in their opinion, oversaturated with rental units.
Right. And I think that's really what we need to concentrate on, the fact that the poverty issue is something that's a concern, as well as the number of units. And so, unless it goes back to the planning commission, I think I think we need to support, their vote on it.
But doesn't this also assist with your initiative on ending homelessness? I mean,
Take it over there at the East Beach then. If that's the case, let's take it over to the East Beach and let's take these 160 units over to East Beach.
And they're right
You
on
know.
a railroad track. That doesn't seem right
Yeah.
to me.
Let's take them to East Beach.
Well, the issue too is that,
And that's
yeah,
a
they,
heavy railroad
they
area.
are right there on a railroad track, but it's very difficult if you looked at the outline of the space you can't put residential there because of the, not like single family
I
there
understand.
as well. But, there are a lot of concerns
I don't know
with
if
the
you can put-
community about the entire project. In reality, you are better putting rental there than you are putting, single family there if you had to make a choice. But the
Okay, can we-
community is very, they're not
Without
happy.
without debating it, do I understand that the planning commission voted 6-1 against it?
Right.
And you're still bringing it forward here to us?
But didn't they vote primarily because of the traffic issue? And
Because
he's
of
talking about
poverty.
rectifying.
Poverty was
On
the
the
issue.
potential for that piece of property.
It's gotta be warehouse.
That's what I was thinking, it's an industrial district.
It's
in the,
office, it's warehouse, it would be another scrap yard, it would be,
It's right next to that scrap.
It is, it's right next to the it's right next to
right
the
next to
metal
that
yard,
recycle.
there's
Rather
scrap.
have a scrap yard.
Okay.
Let me
Well, I
can
think we
say-
got the
say
issue
one thing?
set up.
What I'm thinking is, with everything that we're doing downtown, I've always imagined that site as being an area that a train could pull up, unload merchandise and support downtown, the port some kind of way, could be. I think the industrial, it's a midtown industrial area, and I think we need to keep it as a midtown industrial area and take advantage of that railroad spur that we have there.
Okay, I think we thank you for the briefing. What's next? Okay, the pawn shops.
Okay, Northview, this is a request to amend the PCO standards to allow pawn shops by special exception. It came to us from the Northview Civic League. They asked they asked the Planning Commission to sponsor the application. It's primarily, of course, to allow the relocation of the existing pawn shop to the former BB&T building. It went to the Planning Commission, and at the Planning Commission, there was an awful lot of community concern expressed for the first time that had been heard. So the Planning Commission recommended against it. After the Planning Commission meeting, subsequent to that, we've had a number of meetings with the community. The community said, can we just hold off on this and let us talk about it? And so there have been a lot of community meetings. The community is quite split on what they believe the future of the PCO ought to be. But at this point, they have achieved consensus that they would like the pawn shop to go forward. And so we're recommending approval of the application. We will probably see another application in the future to talk about the PCO as a whole, but this is just the pawn shop.
Yeah, if you move the pawn shop to BB&T from the location it is now, that's already approved, that means you'll have two pawn shops over there. Because one is already approved as a pawn shop. So if they moved out, the next person would not have to, unless I miss my guess, would not have to seek approval because it's already zoned for a pawn shop.
If I could yield to Mr. Pishko, that's true from a zoning standpoint.
That's right, for
But I think
zoning,
there's another.
But we have a limit on the number of pawn shops. Say it's 20, and we're at that limit, so you won't see a new pawn shop without the reduction. So you're correct, that if somebody surrendered their pawn license and that location was empty for less than 2 years, then if there was one of the 20 that wanted to go there, it could. But it would have to be within the 20 that are permitted.
But a new business could not say, well, this place is open now, so it's been a pawn shop, let me go in and become a pawn
Only an
shop.
existing pawn could go in there. We've only got 20 permitted.
Aren't we over by one?
Yes, that when we established it, we said that we wouldn't force anybody out of business, and until we got to the 20, we would never do a new one. We've never gotten from the 21 to the 20, so there won't be a new one unless you increase the limit.
So technically, we couldn't have a new one unless two of them went out of business.
Right, or unless you change the limit. Right, yes, that's right, that's right.
And so then henceforward, in this particular PCO, if the limit was lower, then somebody by special exception now could come in with a pawn shop. Is that correct?
No, because
No, I'm saying,
If you had
okay,
the
let's
number
say 6 pawn shops gave up business. Now, this is going to change this PCO so that now you could have a pawn shop with special exception, whereas before it was not permitted, correct?
Correct. If you got below the 20, if
Right.
6 went out of business, that this would be a site.
What impact
but
does
it would only be
Litman's have?
grandfathered for 2
Litman's,
years,
is Litman's going out of business? Are they surrendering? And, that's what we hear every week, that he's going out of business. So
Well,
if
then-
Litman goes out of business, what does that give us?
20.
It gives us 20.
Well, we lost the one downtown, he closed too.
That's
That's
Litman.
Litman.
They never called him, that's why.
Yeah,
Because you
that
shop
would
at
give
pawn
us
shops all
20,
the time, right?
Yeah.
but we still couldn't get another one unless somebody else went out of business, because
But
then that
this
would be
changes
19.
it for perpetuity, right?
if it's vacant for 2 years,
Changes it
No,
until
no,
the
I'm
next
not
time
talking
it's
about that, I'm
changed.
talking about the whole PCO is now permitted, that if you're down below the level, anybody could come in for any of those properties and by special exception and choose to have a pawn shop.
That's correct, and the
And
reason
this does
especially,
nothing else for any other PCO in the area, am I
Right.
correct?
no, it's just this one.
But, I mean, just, does anybody know the last time anybody turned in a pawn shop license? Did they turn over very regularly?
When did you guys
They're
make the
not.
change on the date?
They have a market value and the business
Don will
tends to
figure
sell.
out a way to transfer that.
Okay, we gotta move quickly then, thank you.
Could we, in future though, do this initially?
We came in at 4 o'clock.
No, I know,
and we
I'm
couldn't
just
get
saying.
everybody here.
I-
Okay.